We're Laura and Cindy, and you're listening to the Holistic Horsemanship and Husbandry podcast, where we talk about natural horsekeeping and deepening your connection with your horse. I'm Laura, your horse care mentor. I teach natural horse management practices after working with over 200 horses and seeing how current industry standards are compromising the health of the horse.
And I'm Cindy, your horsemanship mentor, offering a proven and unique approach to creating deep connections with your horses from 20 plus years of experience, including working with wild Mustangs. If you enjoy this conversation, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening to us so we can get this podcast into the ears of more passionate horse people.
So today we're going to talk about the herd-bound horse. And this can look different for different horses, but it's anything from your horse has anxiety when you bring him out of the herd and tie him up to saddle him, or you can't ride your horse alone off the property, or if you're out on the trail and you get too far ahead or too far behind your other riders, you start feeling unsafe because of the way that your horse is acting. Cindy, what are some other things that you see that mean herd-bound to you?
Well, you definitely see it in your pasture or multiple horse pens, but you can also see it in horses that are living in stall and paddocks next to each other, where they get anxious about leaving their buddy. Mostly, I think you covered it.
Well, and I guess the other side of the coin is the horse that is left behind that has pacing and freaks out, which isn't necessarily a behavioral problem for you, but it's, your horse is miserable. So you want to build their confidence.
Yeah. And that may be trickier than the one who's leaving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Helping the one who's leaving versus the one who's being left behind. So you have my wheels spinning on that one, Laura.
Okay.
Because, if you have 2 horses in a pen and you take one out of the pen and to the arena or to the barn to tack or to the trailer off the property, horses find comfort and safety in numbers. So leaving one horse behind, how do you fix that?
Yeah.
I don't know that I actually have a solid answer for that on the fly.
Well, I would want to look at making sure all of that horse's basic needs are being met, because anxiety is so much amplified if they don't have adequate movement because they're in a stall versus having a pasture. If they don't have the ability to eat and they already have a stomach ache because their stomach is running on empty, and then their anxiety goes. And so, like, the horses whose needs are completely met and is freaking out, that's a harder one. But there's a lot you can do if your horse's needs aren't being completely met to reduce that.
I think where I'm getting stuck on that, one of the basic needs of a horse who is a prey animal is that herd dynamics. That's why it's never fair to have one horse on property alone.
Right.
Because quite literally, their safety is dependent upon being in a herd environment. So that is one of their basic needs. So when you have 2 horses in a pen and you take one out and that horse left behind is having anxiety about that, it's that primal instinct, that primal herd instinct that is being triggered, safety in numbers.
And I think it's about building that individual's resiliency and confidence. So if all their needs are met and their nervous system is pretty regulated all the time, they have a much better resiliency to a little bit of stress because their buddy is now across the property instead of right with them, versus that horse that's already in a heightened nervous system state because his needs aren't being met. And then it becomes a complete panic. So instead of like calling twice and then going back to eating and keeping an eye out for you the whole time you're gone and being happy when you return, that horse is panicking and pacing the fence and working themselves into a complete lather to the point where you don't even want to take your other horse out because that horse is so miserable. But when you build their resiliency and their ability to self-regulate and meet all their needs, yes, it is absolutely stressful on them, but in a much lesser degree.
Because in the order of the horse's basic needs being fulfilled, it's safety, comfort. Some will say food before play, and some will say play before food. But that's the order in which they need to be fulfilled. And so, what I'm hearing you say as a horse person who has taken on the responsibility of meeting their horse's needs, helping them to feel safe is in that teaching them how to emotionally self-regulate.
Yeah.
And that we kind of started this conversation off where I didn't expect us to start
I
it.
know. I just took a left turn.
I mean, I was expecting like, okay, I take my horse out and he panics because he's leaving his herd and he doesn't want to be with his herd. And then the answer is, well, you are the herd, you are their you are their leader. It's up to you to be the confident one that helps them to find the safety in you because you've nurtured the relationship and you've helped them mentally, emotionally, physically with that spiritual heart and soul connection.
Yeah, I think that's what this episode's going to be about. We just took a little right turn right here at the beginning. Gonna get back there.
You started with the one left behind, and I'm like, oh, but it all, you're absolutely right. It's the same thing. If what you're doing when you take your horse away from its safe environment, which, they sometimes they don't want to leave because that's where they're safe.
Right.
It's what you do with them or for them when they leave that space that's going to make the difference on how they handle it when they are the one that is left behind. And so we have a pasture with 2 horses in it, and one of them is yours maybe, and one of them is somebody else's. And when you pull your horse out, your horse is okay leaving its pasture buddy who belongs to somebody else because you do the work with your horse when they're out on that working between the autonomic nervous system, fight or flight, or, parasympathetic comfort zone. And so you're nurturing that. You're taking that holistic approach of mind, body, emotions. So when you put your horse back in and your horse's pasture buddy's person comes and removes their horse, your horse is fine. Mm-hmm. Because you have done the work to help them feel comfortable or find that self-regulating ability to feel okay without that other horse there. Whereas maybe when you take your horse out and that person isn't on this holistic horsemanship and husbandry journey, their horse freaks out, but your horse is fine. So they might go to you, God, Laura, I've noticed that when I get here and MJ's out and about with you, my horse is a mess. But then I notice that when I'm here and you're not here and I take my horse out, MJ's like, cool, see you later. How do you do that? What would you say?
I would say I have done a lot of work to foster confidence in my horse and build that and show her that she's safe with me and safe without me. And meet her basic needs and make sure that her nervous system is regulated so that she can handle a certain amount of stress without being pushed over a threshold. And I would hope that they would have some questions about that and we could have more of a conversation. And it may happen or it may not. And I've heard of people who are doing less with their horse because they're in this situation where they feel terrible that their horse's paddock buddy freaks out every time they leave. And so they feel bad and they're not doing the things they want to do with their horse. That's not your responsibility. So unless you're going to buy the horse from this person, don't let them dim your light. I know it's hard. I know it's really hard. And you could certainly do some approach and some retreat and some deep breathing and some work like with your horse on the outside of the pen and their horse on the inside of the pen to try to help that horse regulate. But at the end of the day, if you want to go riding off the property or you want to do stuff with your horse, you can't make that other person show up for their horse. It's not your responsibility. And it's not doing anyone any favors for you and your horse to not be reaching your full potential because you're holding yourself back for another partnership.
Well, and what I would add to that, Laura, is having that unique, amazing, dream fulfilled relationship and partnership with your horse. It's not just about developing and nurturing and strengthening your horse's confidence and your horse's emotional fitness and your horse's mental and physical fitness. It's about you doing your own inner work. And as harsh as this may sound, everybody, is that if you find yourself in that scenario that Laura just explained, you have zero control over that horse's life and that horse's owner's responsibility. You have absolute control over yourself, your mental, physical, and emotional fitness and boundaries, and your horse's well-being and your partnership. So what we believe, I believe that Laura and I share this philosophy, is in order to have that holistic horsemanship, husbandry, ideal relationship and partnership, we have to be willing to grow and get uncomfortable and learn more about ourselves and create our own emotional fitness in order to be the best that we can be for our horses. So if you're in that scenario, it's not about the horse who's being left behind, about what's being triggered inside of you that I would encourage you to explore, because that trigger, I guarantee you, is affecting the relationship between you and your horse.
Yeah.
It just is.
I mean, this is actually a really hilarious conversation because of what I'm dealing with right now, which is having a 6-month-old who wants all my attention and a horse who I want to go play with. And unfortunately, they're both mine, and I can't say someone else is responsible for this baby.
Right.
So I am having to learn to dance with both. And I am the most triggered because I can't be the very best for both of them that I want to be in these moments when the baby wants to be held and the horse doesn't want to stand there patiently and waiting while the baby gets held. And the only way through this is for me to do my personal work to stop being triggered and to roll with what's happening because it's out of my control.
Right, which we, as we talked earlier, it's all, this one of the key ingredients to a successful experience with horses is to have a plan and be flexible.
Yep.
So Laura went today with a plan of how things were going to go down. And little baby said, "Not today, mama." And MJ said, "I'm not in alignment with Sophie's idea of what's going on today. So I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to chew on the barn while you do whatever you're doing over there."
Right.
And so Laura is torn between the two, and so what I heard her saying was, I had to find a compromise. Like, how can I meet both of their needs and make this enjoyable for all three of us instead of imploding and being angry and frustrated, and both of those other beings are going, what?
Yeah, I'm just being me. And so, I mean, it was just a lot of personal work. And today I made the choice to make them both happy. MJ is eating her food. Baby is sitting on MJ and playing with her mane and just happy as can be while MJ's eating. They had a lovely day. None of my goals were met, but had I have tried to meet my goals, it would have been resistance and frustration. I would have become a version of myself that I didn't like. Nobody would have had a good time. And so in that space, that was best for me. But if this wonderful, lovely baby was not my baby, and I was not responsible for nurturing her wonderful life, there would be no value in me compromising what I'm doing with MJ for her. And it would be detrimental to MJ and I. We are committed to move forward as a three. So if you have a herd where you own both horses, you are committed to building your relationship with both of those horses, building both of those horses confidence so that you can go out with both of them, you can go out with one of them, you can leave either one of them, and all of that flows and works. And that happens in how you work with each individual and how you work on yourself.
Absolutely. And what I want to really share with everybody on this topic is that a herd bound horse is a herd bound horse because that's where he finds safety. And the reason that he needs to find safety with a herd is because somewhere from birth to the time that you got him, nobody took the time to teach that horse that they are safe within their own space.
Yeah.
Meaning, yes, it is great. My instinctual needs are met when I'm in a herd, but I'm also emotionally okay when I am by myself. Now, I do not believe that a horse should live alone, period. It's torturous.
Yeah.
It's not, a herd animal is not meant to live alone. But you can teach every horse how to emotionally regulate and find comfort in being alone at times, which by teaching them how to emotionally deregulate, get back down into their parasympathetic nervous system when they are in that fight or flight survival mode, is what we mean by emotionally regulating. That is how you create confidence in a horse.
Yep.
A horse lacking confidence is because they don't know, they don't feel safe. And it's interesting that we're having this podcast today because Laura had her thing going on. And right now, where I'm focusing in my personal growth and my growth as a horsemanship trainer and mentor, and a lot of my clients, this is a topic. This is the topic we're working on right now, is which comes first, safety or comfort? And in my personal opinion and my personal experience, it's hard to develop confidence if your safety is threatened. Rather, it's triggered from something, current experience is triggering something that happened in your past, therefore feels real in the moment because you're seeing through those lenses. You don't feel safe, so your confidence is being challenged. Now, it's the same thing with our horses, especially if we don't know their entire life history. We don't know what kind of trauma they have had in their past that has given them the chronic sense of feeling unsafe.
And it might not even be trauma. It might be years and years of isolation. That will give a horse a chronic sense of feeling unsafe. And then when they're finally with a herd, they do not want to leave that herd because
Yep.
they finally feel safe. And
Yep.
you don't have to know exactly what your horse's trauma is. You just have to have the understanding that my horse isn't acting out because he doesn't want to go on a ride, because he doesn't want to go to work. That is such a harmful rhetoric that is constantly pushed, and it's totally wrong. My horse feels totally unsafe, and these behaviors are coming out because he's trying to feel safe again, trying to get back to safety. And never, ever in the history of ever has someone been made to feel safe by being punished. So we cannot punish herd-bound behavior.
Right. And that like face your fears, yes and
Yes.
no.
Like face your fears with the support you need to feel safe, which is how you handle a herd-bound horse.
And Laura and I both see a lot of people. I need advice on how to make my horse not be herd bound any longer.
Right.
I need a trainer that's going to train my horse not to be herd bound. Well, I'm going to go back to something that I say a lot because it's worth saying a lot is all behavior is communication.
Yeah.
And so if you're having a herd bound horse experience, there isn't just you just can't call up a trainer. You have to find a trainer that understands herd behavior, horse psychology, and the autonomic nervous system. It's deeper than your traditional training and just riding them out and running them and punishing them. You are adding to that sense of feeling unsafe.
Let's pause for a moment. Have you ever looked at your horse and wondered if they're thriving in your care? Is there more you can do to give them the best life possible? Most ranches and boarding facilities are set up for convenience, not horse health, but there's tons you can do to fix your horse's situation if you're willing to get creative. Join Evidence-Based Horsekeeping, my Facebook group where members learn how to improve the mental and physical well-being of their horses. The link is in the show notes. You are breaking them down into submission, and it's doing nothing for your relationship with them. I want to add on that list that your trainer needs to be, that trainer needs to work with you and your horse, because a horse can act completely not herd bound with one person and completely herd bound with another. So you can't send your horse off to a trainer to fix your herd bound problem. You and your horse need to fix that with the help of a trainer.
Well, and absolutely. And let's go even deeper. This is where I may be pissing off a lot of people, Laura.
That's okay.
If you have a herd bound horse that you're struggling with, before you spend the money on having somebody help your horse, I would encourage you to spend the money on having somebody help you.
Yeah.
With your leadership skills, with your confidence, with your feeling safe.
Yeah.
How do you, what gets stirred up inside of you when your horse goes into that herd bound behavior, which is big? It's, there can be pulling and there can be screaming and there can be just like erratic movements. What does that do to you? Because we can either feed into that or we can be that nurturing calm within the storm. So I agree 100% with Laura. Either find a horsemanship mentor who works with you and your horse, or work with yourself, and you'd be surprised. Have somebody work with you on your feeling safe and your confident and your ability to work and understand your horse's needs, and you could do a lot on your own to help your horse. Not that I'm recommending you do that, because some horses are very dangerous when they're herd bound.
Yeah.
But my point, I guess my long-winded point here is I agree with Laura. You need to work side by side with your
But
horse.
you both need to be able to find a place of safety. And if you can't find a place of safety on your own, that has to be step one because you're never going to be able to fake your horse out into you both being safe. That's why when something gets particularly hairy out on the trail, I get off because I'm way more confident in my ability to keep myself safe from the ground. And so then I can be that safe place for MJ from the ground instead of pushing down my fear so that I can cowgirl up and stay in the saddle and getting us both in a wreck when I could have just gotten off and been like, okay, like what is this thing that's a problem and how can we handle it? And do we need to like actually get out of here because there's real danger or just show you something or whatever it is? It doesn't matter. But your confidence in your ability to keep yourself safe will exponentially increase your horse's confidence because they are reading you and you cannot lie to them.
I love it when I watch people, that aren't feeling safe because their horse isn't feeling safe and the horse is acting big because, horses have no filters, right? We
Right.
can be scared shitless
And
and
just like standing there smiling.
right.
Yeah.
And, nobody really knows that we're like losing our shit inside. But I watch people try to comfort their horse and they're frantically rubbing and
Rubbing,
they're
yes,
ho,
yes.
ho, 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 ho. And it's like, that is not helping. You're actually, your tone is telling your horse that you are as scared as they are. And so they don't want to listen to you. You might actually even be more scared than they are
Yeah,
and
right,
scaring them. So we, we, we can't fake it.
right.
And I think that the biggest message for me that I would love for all of you listeners to take away from this episode is a herd bound horse is a behavioral issue, but it is not a horse being bad. It's a horse who is feeling extremely unsafe outside of its environment. And what can we, as their leaders, as their partners, as the ones who say, hey, you can trust me, what can we do to help our horses feel safer leaving their enclosure? And like Laura was saying is, you know, you don't deep dive into it. You take them out and let them graze 10 feet away, or you take them out and give them grain 10 feet away if you don't have the luxury of grass. You take them out 5 feet away and you groom them. And when they show calmness, then take them back.
Yeah.
And that would be a powerful session.
Very powerful session where they realized, like, oh, because, like, let's look at the mindset of the opposite. I'm just going to push through it. Your horse already doesn't want to go. You take them, you make them go. They're feeling unsafe from the moment the halter goes on. Then they go out with you and they're just continuously more terrified the entire time, getting pushed further and harder away from home. They're finally allowed to come back. That magneticism to the herd just got even stronger because, oh my God, the relief of I'm home and it feels better. Or,
And you've become the bad guy.
and you've become the bad guy. Now, you may be using more forceful tactics of moving their feet and, you can use pressure and release in a very unfair manner to shut down the behavior, but the emotional pull to the herd is not going to change.
It's going to get stronger.
It's going to get stronger. Or you do what Cindy just described, and your horse goes, oh, it's actually kind of fun to go out. I get some extra scratches with mom. I get to eat some treats. And then I go right back in, and it's really not that big of a deal. Now the magneticism to you just got a little stronger. And you're matching that magneticism to the herd. Can you get your magneticism stronger than that of the herd with these slow sessions? Then you've really got a powerful relationship that you can go get some really fun stuff done with your horse using.
And you've begun the process of emotional self-regulation.
Self-regulation. Like I can be in an uncomfortable situation and return, and all is well.
Ready to unlock true freedom with your horse? Join Unbridled Freedom, our private Facebook group for women on a spiritual journey in horsemanship. We don't fix our horses, we transform ourselves. This is your space to embrace challenges, celebrate victories, and deepen your bond with your horse. If you're ready to lead with wisdom, compassion, and inner peace, join us today. Let's dance with our horses as one. The link is in the show notes below. Horses do not learn from leaving their comfort zone and going into the panic zone, aka the sympathetic nervous system. They're in fight or flight reactive mode. There is no their ability to hear you, understand you, and respond to you is not there. They are adrenaline driven. There's a space in between called the learning zone. You take them out of their comfort zone, which is the halter on and outside that gate. So for them to be able to stand 5 feet away from the gate, I wouldn't stand right next to the fence because that's not
Doesn't
helping.
feel like they've left.
No, and it may even make it worse. It's so close but so far away type thing. Just taking them 4 or 5 feet away and getting them to just calm down. And, there's the 4 needs, basic needs: safety, comfort, play. It's actually safety, comfort, play, and then food. A horse that does not feel safe or comfortable is not going to eat.
Right.
So if you can get your horse to stand 4 or 5 feet away from their comfort zone and offer them a cookie or a grass or a grain, and they eat it, and you want them to lower their head into their parasympathetic nervous system.
Right. You're not stuffing the cookie in their mouth with their head up at the sky because they're so freaked out. Yeah.
Where the emotional regulation is taking place is by the horse lowering their head below their withers into that parasympathetic place of releasing endorphins and serotonin. And that, my friends, is where the emotional regulation and resetting is taking place. Now, if you can do that consistently for 3 or more times, then I would make your distance farther away. Let your horse tell you how far are they able to get away and still be in that learning zone without tipping into the panic zone where their head is high, they can't stand still, and they're screaming. That's too far.
And if you go too far, it's perfectly okay to backtrack.
Yes.
You're not, giving up. They're not winning. You made a mistake. You're honoring the fact that you made a mistake, and you're going back to where everybody can learn again.
And what that is doing, what Laura just described you doing for your horse when you do that, is you are proving to your horse they are safe in your presence and they can trust you to keep them safe.
Right.
That's right there with that. It takes more courage to get off your damn horse and walk than it does to stay on.
Right.
You're proving to your horse that you are a partner worthy of trusting and keeping them safe.
Let this take time. And this is an ego death for a lot of riders because you want to get on your horse and ride. You want to go out with your friends. You have stuff you want to do. And standing 10 feet outside your paddock and grazing grass is not on your to-do list. But if you skip this step and push through. It is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when you get in a huge wreck with this horse.
Not to mention, by ignoring this, you guys, and putting your agenda above your horse's safety and comfort and confidence, you're creating all kinds of not only behavioral issues, but physical issues like ulcers.
Like
Yeah.
hollowed out backs, overdeveloped ewe necks, all of that stuff.
You're creating a whole lot. And really the bottom line is it's not fair to the horse and they don't deserve it. And it's because in the presence of humans outside of their comfort zone, our comfort zones are our houses.
Mm-hmm.
Their comfort zone are their enclosure. Somewhere the humans have done a disservice to them, taking them out of their safety, comfort zone, and doing things away from there that did not make that threatened their safety, period. It
Right.
all has to do with safety, then confidence.
Yeah. Yeah. You cannot have confidence when you don't feel safe. Like think of any any instance in your life where you felt super unconfident. There was something making you feel unsafe. 100%.
Yeah.
And it's just not a fair expectation, as Cindy said. Like it's not fair to them. So I would love to tell you that in 5 sessions you will have a perfectly unherd bound horse, but that's not the way it works. You have to let this take the time it takes. If you have a herd bound horse, you have a hole in your relationship. Maybe it's because the horse is new to you and you haven't built that relationship yet, or maybe it's because you skipped steps. But you cannot rush through this. If you have a herd bound horse, fixing this becomes your number one priority.
And within that, you have to do a self check. You have to look inward.
Constantly.
How am I handling the fact that I have a herd bound horse?
Horse.
Nobody wants that, you guys.
No.
Let's get serious. Nobody wants to have to deal with that. We all want to be able to get there. Our horse is happy to see us. We take them out, we saddle them up, we go, we have fun. We are in the present moment. Our hearts are wide open. They're happy. That's the dream, right? We
Yeah.
don't want the herd bound horse. But the way that we're coming full circle to Laura's morning, the way that we meet that horse in that behavior is going to make all the difference in the world. So if we don't do the self-awareness check and how am I handling this and what am I contributing to this and how can I make this better for them, it's not gonna get to that result of having that dream that let's get real, is why we are all here listening to this podcast about horses, right? Is
Because we want that feeling of that horse that loves us,
right,
thing for us.
right.
Yeah.
And we all, if you're listening to our podcast, you're like us. If we could pick our freaking horses up and hug them, we would.
If
But
if I could have a bed big enough where MJ could sleep in the bed with me.
right? I tell Bruce all the time, oh, Rocky just needs to come in.
It's really windy out there tonight. Let's just bring him inside.
So we aren't perfect. We have our challenges, and the reason we know what we know is
We
because
made the mistakes.
we've lived it,
Yeah.
and we've not only lived it, but we've done a lot to learn about what makes us tick, what makes us feel safe, what makes us feel confident. How do we show up for our horses? How am I contributing to him not wanting to leave the property with me?
Right.
And sometimes we don't want to do that. We don't want to work on ourselves. We want to get on our damn horse and ride.
Right. But it doesn't do anybody any favors when you do that. And like I can tell you what, having your horse bolting back to the barn with you on them sucks. Sucks.
It does.
Coming off on a dirt road and being limping around for weeks afterward because you bruised your ribs sucks. Like eating mouthfuls of gravel because you barrel rolled 3 times sucks. Like avoid all of that and just spend a little extra time at the beginning fixing that herdboundness.
So, you guys, the takeaway here is that a herd bound horse is a horse who doesn't feel safe outside of their enclosure, away from the other horses, which is actually a natural phenomenon with
Yes.
horses. It's actually not natural for a horse to be willing to leave their herd and go off with a human who is actually a predator and go do things. It's a gift.
It's
And
a
it's
gift.
something that we have to earn and not expect. And Laura and I are always here for further conversation and to help you in whatever way we can.
Yeah, Cindy, what do you have in your freebie library that would be
You know,
helpful for this?
I think in my freebie library, the one that I would like to attach to this podcast would be the Horsewoman's Guide to Confidence.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we're gonna put that at the very top of the show notes.
So if you have any questions about the topics covered in this episode, send us a message on our Facebook page, Holistic Horsemanship and Husbandry, and we will answer your question in a post on our page. You will be anonymous. We'll just take the question and provide our input, and we want to do it on the post so that we can all learn and grow together, because nobody knows everything. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. We want to remind you that we'll be here every second and fourth Tuesday of the month, following the golden rule. Have a plan, but always be willing to be flexible. Don't forget to connect with us using the links in the show notes below.
If you learned something new today, had an aha, or walked away with a valuable nugget, you can say thanks by leaving us a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening on.